Jay, what do you like?
I like Josh Palmer over 36.5 receiving yards. 6 of his past 7 games, he's gotten to at least 36. Now he's had a couple near misses on 36 on the dot. And so Josh Palmer, I think, goes over 36.5 receiving.
What about you, Matthew?
My actual bet is Justin Herbert under half a reception, under 0.5 interceptions. Look, he's got the lowest interception rate among quarterbacks this season. He's got 1 interception in 277 attempts. I think Herbert stays clean. I don't think he has his second interception all season long tonight. So give me Herbert under half an interception tonight.
I like Herbert a lot tonight, too. Listen, I like his over on passing, 258.5. I was a little surprised it wasn't on the public board. He's cleared this 4 of the last 5. This is his best matchup.
I agree.
Out of the 6 games, this is the best matchup. So
I would have taken this bet if you hadn't taken it already.
We'll take an alt line. Stay 275. You guys can host
Glad
the
I
rest
didn't
of the
take
show.
that alt line.
Yeah, screw this. I'm not hosting the rest of the show.
I don't blame you.
Yeah.
That's backup producer Pete doing to you what
Right.
he normally is to me.
Right.
It's the CD Lamb jersey. It just screwed you. It doesn't look right.
It doesn't look
And
right
it
on you.
affected your bet.
Well, I'm relying on it again when I take Cowboys minus 3.5 at
That's
some
true.
point
Yeah,
this week.
yeah,
So.
I will say I think you got totally
It was
screwed
a
on that.
horrible viewing experience.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
Quentin Johnston would still be running on that crossing route.
1,000%. That crossing route, and there was probably like 80 yards in pass interference.
There
Like,
was.
I
It
mean,
definitely
like
felt
4
that
different
way.
big plays that like.
Josh Palmer could have had 130 yards.
Easy.
Herbert missed him on a deep one.
Yeah.
That's why it's betting.
You still cashed, I still cashed, but
I don't
you
know
should
how
have
I
cashed.
I didn't really have to sweat it out because he went over in the third quarter. But
Yeah.
if Josh Palmer only get 38 yards, the guy should have had 80.
He
It
was open a
unbelievable.
ton
Yeah,
last
it's
night.
completely
Yeah,
missing.
there was.
That's the loud. Not kidding aside. That's the loudest I've heard Chargers fans when they were booing the drops.
Yeah.
It
I
got-
didn't
it
know
fit-
they had that many fans. Good
It
for
was.
them.
It was painful. That's like you started to feel bad for Quentin Johnston at some point.
It was a bad day at the office for him. First game this season with 0 fantasy points for QJ. He'd had double-digit fantasy points in each of the previous 3 games. He's only the 3rd wide receiver this season with 5 or more targets and 0 catches. Rashid Shaheed, Calvin Ridley, the other 2 as well. I mean, that was just a brutal drop. There's nothing, there's nothing else.
he had to have it.
Wide open. It's a crossing route.
Changes the game.
He's got nothing but that one and the pass interference call that could have gone either way. That pass interference call was a bad one that the Chargers didn't get.
Yeah, well, Quentin Johnston dropped the next one as well. Like he he reminded me of Austin Seibert. They looked the same. They had the same look in their eyes in the game. I'm sorry,
Like,
they did. They
nothing
both
can
looked-
get me
they
out of
both
this
looked
hellscape.
terrified. I hope I hope QJ turns it around. He's had a much better season than I think people thought, but wasn't great.
Who's more droppable, him or Isaiah Likely?
That's a tough one. I think they're in the same sphere of droppable. I mean, didn't you have Quentin Johnston ranked like, I'm not potting you on this, but you had him ranked like wide receiver 23 or something coming into this week. So that is a level of upside as someone who can be the wide receiver 2 for Justin Herbert.
1,000%. Like, I mean, again, he got 5 targets. If he makes a catch, I can't make them catch, but all I can say is like, hey, here's an opportunity that I think he's going to have. And I thought, hey, he's going to get 5 or 6 targets in a very good matchup against a bad defense. And honestly, again, he catches that, takes it to the house.
Yeah.
Like everything,
The game probably goes into overtime. Not to over-exaggerate, but like there's a very good chance that game goes into overtime if he makes a couple more plays.
Yeah, so I think Likely is the
How
more
it goes.
droppable because of Johnston's upside.
Yes, I agree. Likely.
How about this
is
one,
more
Matthew?
droppable.
Who would you rather have the rest of the season, Zay Flowers or Lad McConkey?
I think I'd rather have Lad McConkey. 5th straight game with 50 or more receiving yards. He's averaging over 16 fantasy points per game during that stretch. It's only his 3rd game this season with below of a 20% target share. And for Zay Flowers, for me, I feel like the Chargers have much fewer weapons. I feel better about McConkey's week in, week out production than I do about Flowers because they have Andrews. They're taking deep shots to Bateman. They've obviously got Derrick Henry. They're always going to run with Lamar as well, and then, hey, Nelson Aguilar. I just feel like there's more weapons on Baltimore. They're both great. I'd like to have both Zay Flowers and Lad McConkey, but in the convoluted, weird game that backup producer Pete is making us play, I would prefer Lad McConkey to Zay Flowers the rest of the way.
In theory, Deontay Johnson also exists as
Yes.
well.
Right.
Purely in theory for the
Yes.
time being, but he may surface at some point
One
when he
more.
stops falling over. He's
Yeah.
constantly falling over on these
Mark
roads.
Andrews or Will Dissly?
I would take Mark Andrews just because of I think he has more touchdown equity in that
I agree with
offense. But Will Dissly's been great. Great story, but Mark Andrews for me.
Will Dissly at least 8 fantasy points in 5 of the last 6 games, but to your point, only 1 touchdown this entire year as well. Mark Andrews just is such a big threat in the red zone. So I agree with you. I would, and again, this convoluted, weird game that no one out there has to play, but sure. I prefer Mark Andrews to Will Dissly rest of the way as well. But Dissly is legit. Dissly is a legit, top 15-ish tight end the rest of the way, like in the hellscape that is the tight end position in fantasy this year. Will Dissly is very viable. Nice to see Mark Andrews get a 24% target share. That was a season high for him. He's now been over 20% in 2 of the last 3. So it just feels like finally, he's not Mark Andrews' top 5 tight end, but at least he's Mark Andrews' viable fantasy tight end again. Yeah,
and not to pile on the ref because the decisions are difficult in real time, but when Andrews caught the touchdown pass, like the fact that all the Ravens just immediately celebrated, even though it was ruled incomplete, they just all knew, like everyone on the field knew except for the ref.
Like it wouldn't be close.
Andrews like, what are you talking about?
Very strange.
It's clearly a touchdown.
Very strange. Everybody just ran to the side of the ball and said, let's move on.
Yeah. Super weird. We talked about Dobbins and Edwards already as well, but, Herbert's going to continue. He didn't cash the overprop, but Herbert continues to be a QB1. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and Rotoworld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Roto-World fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.